Hi there, welcome back to my studio. Thank you for checking out this video. If you're new here, my name's Siobhan and I post videos about figure drawing, specifically a dynamic and expressive approach to drawing the figure. But for the last few weeks, I've actually been working on a very different subject matter. I haven't been drawing the figure at all. I've been working on these large-scale drawings, which I want to tell you a little bit about today. I recently did an advanced drawing workshop with South African artist Diane Victor, and I feel like I really had a breakthrough in my drawing, mainly because I was introduced to a medium and a method that I'd never used before. So I made these sort of landscapes and cityscapes using just charcoal powder and an eraser, which is a very different way of working than I'm normally used to. There are certain moments in drawing where it really feels like something breaks through and you discover something new or a new way of saying things. Unfortunately, these moments can be very few and far between, but when they do happen, it's so important. I think I can count maybe 3 or 4 times where I've had one of these breakthroughs, but every time it's had a very big impact and been very powerful. And I remember every drawing where this happened. So now that I'm back in the studio, I wanted to see if I could use that same process or bring that same experience into my work with figure drawing. Basically, I wanted to see if I could use charcoal powder to do figure drawing. So in this video, I want to share a demo of using this to make a couple of very quick drawings of the figure. And just to be clear, these are very experimental drawings. I don't know if they were all that successful, but I thought the process was so interesting and I wanted to explain why, as figure drawing artists, you should really at least experiment with different mediums, if not, try this one out for yourself. So like I said, this is the first time that I'm using charcoal powder. I don't know if I'm using it correctly, but what I do is just sort of lash it down onto the page, roughly where I think the figure needs to be. So I'm using a brush to put the charcoal down on the paper, get it in place, and sort of figure out the composition. I'm more or less following shadow shapes in the reference image, but really this process is not about drawing or rendering shadows. It's much more about just blocking in the image or blocking in the drawing. I think you probably can use charcoal powder in a much more refined way than this, and you can achieve very delicate shadows and light in a drawing, but for me it was much more interesting to work with it kind of in a loose gestural way. So for this first stage, focus just on blocking in the figure in a very rough way. Don't worry about details or anything like that, just think about your composition on the page and think about the overall gesture of the pose. So once the drawing is sort of worked out, or at least the charcoal is worked into the page, then what you can do is use a kneaded eraser to erase back that tone. So this is a good one to use because you can sort of shape a kneaded eraser into specific shapes to erase more precisely. But what you're essentially doing is drawing with your eraser. You can also use a really good proper eraser as well for very fine details and to work back the charcoal a bit more, because sometimes the kneaded eraser doesn't actually get all of the tone off the page. But this entire process, this is where the drawing really starts to take shape. And for me, it's a little bit like finding the drawing as opposed to creating the drawing. So what I love about this medium is that unexpected things can happen in the drawing. You can't exactly plan the drawing necessarily, and you get to work with that as it unfolds. In figure drawing, I think especially if you're going to live drawing every week and using that as a creative practice to develop your expression, there's always a balance that we have to strike between representing what we see as the figure in like a literal sense and allowing that creative response to come through. So I really love this medium for that. I think things will happen in the drawing and then you just decide if you want to go with it or erase it back. Then at a certain point, what I wanted to do was work into the drawing with a pencil. So I switched over to using a Conte à Paris pencil just to bring in some lines and edges into the drawing. Now, I don't know if it works, but it's what feels instinctive. And I'm just following contours very carefully so that the drawing gets a little bit more contained. However, I would say the danger here is to turn this from a tonal drawing into a very outlined drawing. So I would say just use your line sparingly if you do try this out yourself. I think at this stage, you'll find that the figure is mostly expressed in your drawing, and the line work is just really there to help you give that edge or give that definition. But of course, if you're very skilled with tonal drawing and you're very good at drawing shadows and rendering light and dark tones, then I'd say you don't even need to have lines in a drawing like this, just working with that tone, those tonal values. Then on the second attempt, I tried better quality paper and again worked with the exact same approach. You have to be quite brave at the beginning. You have to just allow that charcoal to do its thing and not freak out, not worry if it all looks like a complete mess at the beginning. Because the beauty of this is that you can always work into it. Charcoal powder is very light, it's very forgiving, and it's easy to erase and move around. This whole process, I think, including the large scale drawings that I made, really sort of made me very aware that as life drawing artists, I think getting stuck in a rut and staying with what you know and what you're comfortable with is very, very common, especially so for the kinds of mediums that we use. I think if you're used to one drawing medium and you stick with that week after week, you can easily risk getting stuck in your work. I realised that I've been drawing the figure for years and I've always just used charcoal and only one kind of charcoal, that's compressed charcoal. I mean, every so often I do try other drawing tools, but I always come back to compressed charcoal and I've never used charcoal powder. So that was a complete revelation to me. And what happened for me with this medium, as I said, it feels much more like the drawing emerges with nearly very little effort on my part. And I really loved that about this process. I've always liked to draw with a sense of sort of not being totally in control. I will often use my non-dominant hand if I feel I'm getting too rigid or too precise in the drawing, or try to draw in an intentionally loose and gestural way so that I'm not overly controlling the outcome. And I think this process allows for a much more intuitive and responsive way of drawing. Personally anyway, whenever I get very tight or try to make a perfect looking picture, the result never excites me. It never makes me feel like I've actually said what I needed to say in the drawing. So the lesson in all of this for me is to trust the unexpected. And when things happen unexpectedly, learn to trust those moments and to see where it leads you. Drawing, I think, is a process that's often mysterious, and sometimes, like these unexpected moments, it's something that doesn't have to be explained in words. It's much more of a feeling thing. And this medium helped me to see that and to reconnect with that. So I hope you found this video helpful. I hope it was useful. I hope you got some good inspiration for your own figure drawing practice. Let me know if you use this medium in your drawing and how you handle it. I'd love to hear your thoughts. So thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.